lot of dark thoughts, I had a lot of bad days. I realized I couldn't walk for real, because of the pain. There was no way I'm not going to be ready for this next season. No, absolutely not. I was never opposed. I never gave myself that excuse either. Doc said I was good enough to go, and that's all I needed to hear. And the only way to deal with it, put your head down, go to work, be prepared, earn a playbook.
You know, it was just different. You just had a different energy.
I knew at that point that I wasn't going to be on the board. You might have a preconceived path, but that path is fluid, it's abstract, it's always moving. Take advantage of every opportunity you have, because you never know what can happen the next day.
Welcome to Courage, Comebacks, and Conversations. I'm Susan Lee, business leader, life and career coach, storyteller, wife, and mother. We're bringing you real stories. From athletes chasing their dream to entrepreneurs who left corporate America to start their own business, professionals rebuilding after setbacks, from women breaking barriers in male-dominated fields, and to first in their families who graduate from college. Every story reminds us that courage connects us, and who doesn't like to hear a comeback story? I'm glad you're here. Let's get into it. In this episode of Courage, Comebacks, and Conversations, I have a co-host, Edward Lee. Hello, Ed.
Hey.
He happens to be John's teammate, but he also happens to be my son. And I thought, I met John through Ed, so I thought it was appropriate to bring Ed into the conversation because they had a lot of parallels in their college experience. And I thought, it'd be a good time for them to chat a little bit about it since I am less knowledgeable about football. So we're sitting down with his former college teammate and wide receiver, John Erby, for an honest conversation about injury, identity, and perseverance. From broken bones to breakthrough seasons, John shares how faith, focus, and family have fueled his journey and why giving up was never an option. This episode is called Resilient by Design. Hello, John.
Ms. Lee, nice to see you again, man. It's been a while.
So tell me a little bit about, we're going to talk football, right? So tell me a little bit about when you first fell in love with football.
Yeah, so it came from my dad, just introducing me to different sports as a kid, things that I had fun with. It was a tradition in the house. Every Sunday, it was football on like every TV in the crib, and I would just imagine myself playing on that screen. And in the backyard, me and my dad was always out there throwing the ball. He was teaching me the route tree, how to run routes, how to catch. And although my mom ain't let me play because I had asthma and it was pretty bad back then, so she didn't let me play like small fry, peewee, nothing like that. But when middle school came, I was out there. I just remember like, even as a young kid, I always wanted to play running back. Actually, one of my favorite players was at the time was Brian Westbrook, that played for the Eagles. I wanted to be like him, but when it came time to get on that practice field and the coaches told the positions to go where they should go, I just leaned on the experience I had with my dad for the last 5 or so years. And I'm like, I've been catching rock, I've been running routes. I need to go play receiver. So that's where I went. And
now, didn't you play quarterback in high school?
I did. Yes, ma'am. I did.
Tell us a little bit about going from quarterback to wide receiver.
So it actually happened in reverse. I was playing receiver and I kicked and punted. Played a little bit of DB too. But I was playing receiver freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Halfway through junior year, a high school coach, Coach Victor Floyd, he threw me in the game at quarterback one time. And he told me he was going to do that earlier in the season. He said, Malik going to be gone next year. He said, I don't trust nobody else to run the offense, so it's going to be you. And I was like, oh, okay. Like my heart kind of like dropped. I'm like, oh, all right, it's about to be totally different next year. And in my senior season, I played quarterback. I played no receiver. And off of 1 year, I feel like I did very well. If I had another year to play quarterback, it could have got crazy. But I definitely put numbers. I definitely did.
So how did you get recruited to go to Rhode Island to play wide receiver?
My best guess, the guy that recruited me, Coach Donovan Varner, he was at ECU. And I had went to a bunch of like satellite camps at Clemson. And I feel like that's the place he seen me because I know I went crazy that day. All the older coaches was like, you should come to the second session too, because the second session had like better competition. And they wanted to see how you versus them. And I still went crazy. But I never heard nothing from Clemson, but I get a call from Coach Varner, like, yo, I'm from at Rhode Island. He had just got the job. And, he got me on a visit. And then I ended up going to Rhode Island.
So obviously we played together at Rhode Island. What was your discipline like on a day-to-day basis? Obviously college is a big change for people. So tell me how that went for you.
I just stayed grounded in the reason I was there, because I committed to play football and I already had the foundation and discipline to stay on top of the books. So I knew I was away from home. I'm representing myself and my family. Like, it's time to go to work. I'm here on business during that time. All I did, really, the biggest thing was just sticking around the teammates, man. Because, Ed, like it's so many people, it's so many stories we got about these people, like funny stories, crazy stories, like learning moments, all of that.
What is the locker room like? I always hear that the locker room is where it all happens, where you guys are having fun. I know we would always be waiting outside after the game for Ed because he'd be in there forever. And you know that because I would say, never you seen Ed, but what did you guys do in the locker room, both of you?
I second that. Ed took so long every day, Ms. Lee, I promise you. It don't matter if we just did, if it was practice, bro was the last one out every time. I promise you. Crazy. But go ahead though, Ed.
No, I was just gonna say, it's just a lot of joking around. I mean, because a lot of people try to just get in and get out, and so I would just kind of stay in there until everybody was almost out, and then that's when I would start my shower. My showers are long as well, so that's why it would just take me, a pretty long time. That's just what I used to do every day.
Well, John and I had a lot of conversations about that because he'd come out smiling and I'd go, could you go back in? Go back in there, please, and get in. You tell him we're outside. But we're laughing and we're joking about this. And I think about you guys coming out of the locker room. And one of the things that really, really had an impact on me, you both suffered injuries. But I'd love, John, for you to talk about the first injury and the second injury, because I just remember watching you and my heart went out to you. Tell us about what happened.
Okay. So I'll be real quick for the first 2 years because it happened during the third and fourth years it happened. So your freshman year, I redshirted, just learning from the guys ahead of me. You know what I mean? Trying to pick up the game at the higher level. Trying to prepare my body and mind for it. My sophomore year, I played a little more, mostly on special teams, but I was out there and we had a crazy talented squad, but it was just a shame that like we couldn't turn that talent into wins, because we had some dogs out there. But after they were gone, we had two cats that went to the league in front of us. I mean, when I say us, I mean me and Ed. And after they left, we knew it was go time for both of us. Like it's up. You know what I mean? Like we've been behind them guys this whole time. Ed was dealing with an injury when I first got there. And he was healthy. He was ready to go. I'm hungry. I hadn't played like that. So we fast forward. Of course, COVID happens, no ball. All right. And then here we go. We're in 2021. We getting ready for Villanova, the first game in the spring. It's an abbreviated season. It didn't count towards the eligibility. It was just like everybody was itching to play football again because it was gone for so long. And then about a week before the first game, it was at the beginning of the practice, we always started. I forgot what that joint was called. The first period, bruh.
I can't remember either, but yeah.
I forgot what it was called. We were always running like a mini series. It was like 3 plays, up tempo, let's get practice started. I think it was the last play of that series till the defense had a blitz call and it was 0. And that was the high read. And the safety, he's a good player, smart player. I remember Kobe Tippett. He a good player, smart. So he knew it was coming. But he jumped the play. The slant came to me. It was a high ball because it was a 0 blitz. Seam had to get the ball over the lines, a bunch of hands in his face. So I left my feet forward. But Kobe hit me out the air. So now I'm spinning to the ground. and I feel my head flying back. So I throw my hands back, and my left hand landed perfectly fine, but my right hand, it didn't turn all the way, and I landed on my wrist. And as I'm trying to get up, I just feel my arm just like feel like 1,000 pounds. Like, what's going on? Like, my adrenaline's still going. And I look and my hand is just like, it's just like mangled. And I tried to make a fist because it was hurting. I was like, let me make a fist, try to squeeze through it. And I swear I thought I made the fist, but I watched my hand not move. I got up, I picked my arm up, I carried it off in my other hand. I got to the sideline. I'm still trying to move my fingers. I can't move my fingers. The only thing that's going through my head, I just broke my wrist. The trainers told me something crazy. They told me something like it was going to be all right. I'm like, yo.
I remember that play. Like, I wasn't on the field for it. I was just watching from the sideline. And so I saw the play, and I saw him just get up and just come to the sideline, kind of holding his wrist, but like he wasn't like screaming or anything like that. So I'm like, okay, he's good. So I think it was my turn to go in. I just wasn't even thinking about like, oh my gosh, like he might be seriously hurt. It was just, he was just shaking it off until we came back to the sideline, and it was like wrapped up in ice. And I'm like, dang. And then obviously he sat out the practice, and then obviously afterwards he found out, the severity of it. So obviously I've had injuries in the past, and I know how deep of a hole you can get into while, going through the rehab process and, kind of watching other people play. So tell me about how you kind of got through the rehab process and kind of the mental part about it too.
Yeah. So that first one, the wrist, that one was tough because that was the first time like I had ever really gotten hurt, like for real, to the point where I missed time doing anything ever. So like, and I'm right-handed. My right hand was casted for 3 months, so I had to live left-handed for a while. And there's a lot of things that you don't think about that became very difficult. It was definitely a challenge, but I say that one was pretty tough because it wasn't much I could do with it. I was in that cast for a while. It was like a week by week thing. This thing actually took multiple operations too. I had to go under 3 different thumbs for this thing. The first one, because it was dislocated, the first one was to reset the wrist, to reset everything in the bones, and then they put me in the big cast. And I was in that cast for about a week. Then I went back to the hospital, went to a different one, and that's when they cut me open and reattached all the ligaments to my fingers because all the ligaments was done. And they literally clamped my wrist together on either side, and that stayed in there. Those clamps stayed in for the remainder of that 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, I had to go under again so they could remove the clamps. It's funny, you might not believe it, but I honestly feel like that wrist was more painful than the knee, man.
So let's talk about, I am just blown away by what you just described. And I don't understand. And so maybe you can help me understand. You rehabbed and you went back out on the football field. How long did it take you to rehab? And what was your mindset walking back on that field after that?
Mid-May was when I got the clamps out and I could actually like rehab for real. So in my mind, I had just under 2 months to get right because it was no way I'm not going to be ready for this next season. Like, we're going. I could be honest, looking back on it now, it probably wasn't ready. It probably wasn't, but I was going to make it work. And when I got back on that field, of course it was in the back of my head, but I wasn't scared of nothing. I had already went through it, and I was just focused on, what I came here to do 3 years prior. Like, I got to get to it. Time running short. And then that leads us into what happened next.
So what happened next?
So I got cleared about literally a week before camp. We have our first scrimmage. It's live. But then towards the end, we turned the live period off, and now we was trying to work on situational things. And this situation in particular was 2 minute. I had a quarterback threw the ball over the middle. It was high, I was a little late. And I went up for it. I'm trying to make a play. I remember offense didn't really have a good day. I'm trying to make a play to, have something to look forward to on film, give a good feeling to the offense, like, yo, like, we ain't had the best day, but, we still making plays out there. So I go up, but the corner, he was in cover 3, and he split in between me, the number 2 receiver, and the number 1. So he see a ball thrown. He jumped first. He hit me early again. He hit me before the ball get there. So I jump into him, just the way physics work, and I knock him higher in the air. And the way I had to land was crazy because I got this on my mind, like, all right, like I had to tumble really for real. But again, I knocked the corner in the air. So I hit the ground first, and then he landed on me. He landed on all of his weight on my right knee. What it felt like was like if somebody like hit your shin with something really hard. And I couldn't get up for a second, but I got up, tried to take a step, and I dropped. So I hopped off the field. And it wasn't until I laid down on the sideline and the trainer like grabbed my leg to like see what was going on that I realized it was my knee. I tried to walk it off or try to jog it off, and I realized how it felt like. And that's when the reality set in, like the process started all over again.
So obviously that the rehab, the physical rehab is obviously a test in itself, but do you think that the physical rehab was harder, or do you think the mental aspect was harder, especially with your second injury?
I tell you mental first. So mentally, that second one threw me in the void because I had worked so hard to get back from the wrist, and then it got took from me again. This time, leg injuries is different. Now I can't get around. You know what I mean? I can't walk. It's, again, a lot of simple things that we take for granted outside of the field, just in regular life, that I can no longer do for this period of time. And I got to figure it out. So yeah, I was real low. I was super low for sure. And that mental battle was hard, man. I had a lot of dark thoughts, I had a lot of bad days, but the thing that kept me afloat, man, was the teammates. I was still around y'all. That was the year that we actually lived together. Yeah, Ed. It was Ed. I remember Ed. Chris was in there. Lonnie, Tone, and me. And that was a great group of guys to be around, as well as, everybody else that was on the team. It really helped out the mental state. Like, yo, I'm gonna be all right because, I got these guys with me. And I told them that throughout the process, like, yo, y'all don't realize what y'all doing for me right now. And as far as the physical part, I'll never say it was easy because I never forget, man. It was hard. It was so hard. But, I had that drive and I had a determination, and I had a great therapist, Mark Murphy. He got me right. And when I realized how good he was on that first day in therapy, because I wasn't sure. I was discouraged going into that training room in the morning, but then I met Mark. I'm like, oh yeah, he's different. Like he's about to get me right. So every day my grind turned into wake up, figure out a way to get to that training room. I had plenty of friends that helped me get down there. And yeah, it was time to work, man.
Can I ask you a question? Obviously, I've not had an injury like this, and both of you have gone through this. I'm in awe of how you have to reconcile your mind and your body together. You just explained learning to use your left hand for everything during that period of time. Then mentally, now you're in college, so you're going to class. Are you writing? Like, what are you doing?
I couldn't write. And I asked, it's funny, I started laughing because that question unlocked some memories. Like, I remember asking for help from like the academic advisors we had. Nobody really helped me, man. I was like, yo, can I get somebody like write for me or like figure something out? Man, I figured that out on my own. I had to.
Well, I have to point this out too, because I always looked at after every semester and you were literally like on the academic everything. So even in the midst of having a hand injury, you were still getting phenomenal grades.
Yes, ma'am. And ironically, those semesters where I was hurt, um, that was like the highest. I had the highest like overall GPA.
When you guys are going on that field, you're competing for spots. It's not like your spot is guaranteed. So you're coming off back-to-back injuries, a wrist injury that clearly you just described as reattaching ligaments. Now you've injured your leg and you're still having to rehab and come back and compete for a spot. When you go out on that field, are you apprehensive about playing because of the injuries?
No, absolutely not. I was never opposed or like I never gave myself that excuse either. Like everybody was dealing with something and I knew the type of player I was regardless of what happened to me. But Erby, you're gonna have to figure it out. And you got to come out of this thing better. You got to get better every year. It don't matter what happened to you, bro. Let's go. I remember telling you, like, when I was down with the leg, like, I was like, bro, it's like we never get to play together. Like, one of us was down for something. But we did get to play in 2022 on the field at the same time, even though for me it was kind of in a limited capacity. Because, the coaches saw me as damaged goods. I knew I was ready, but they didn't think so. But I never forget that first time I stepped back on that field. Because to put it in perspective, the last time I had played before that injury, I was 19 years old. And the next time I played, I was 22. 3 full years had passed. And I remember getting in the game at Stony Brook for my first snap, like, and I'm looking at the ball and I hear the crowd noise and I know the play that's coming, like, I feel like I was floating, like it felt new and familiar at the same time. Like it's really hard to explain, but that feeling started to go away and I became more comfortable and I started to play a little more. We had a real good coach, Coach Patterson, and Custo. That was a good dude in the room. That year, honestly, it was my favorite year as far as like the collection of guys we had with the coach. Like nothing could break that room up. You know what I mean? We was so tight. We was ready to go to war with anybody.
I do remember, because obviously we went through a lot of the same things. Like our careers are almost the same, as far as injuries and even playing time as well.
Yeah.
And so when you came back from that year, your 2022 was kind of like my 2021. Like I didn't really play 2021 coming back from that injury, and not as much as I wanted to. And I know you kind of felt the same way. In 2022, it just seemed like every time you went in, the ball just found you and you just made plays, great catches. So tell me about how that felt and how you went about feeling like you were able to make plays, but not, being on the field enough to consistently make them.
I was prepared for the opportunity. And anytime I got the opportunity, it was successful. It was big plays. It was crucial moments that I got thrown in there. It was even that historic 7 overtime game with my wrist still ain't the best, but I threw that two-point conversion, and people was trying to say like I wasn't supposed to be in that spot, but I was fighting against people that was supposed to be on my side the entire time, and I didn't do anything but put my head down, go to work, and when my opportunity came, I made plays, I moved the chains, I scored. But again, like the opportunities just they weren't there that year. I think a big reason for that being was that we didn't have the coach that recruited me anymore. Coach Varner had left right as I had got back to health in 2022.
I'd like to make one observation, just as a person on the outside of football. When coaches recruit you, that those are the ones that have seen your work. They believe in you, and they're in your corner and making sure that you're advocated for. But I'm sure this probably happens a lot of times to football players? Because even like Ed, you were in the same boat, right?
Yeah, so the coach that recruited me to Rhode Island left after my first year. And so what you kind of went through with Coach Varner, like Coach Varner was that new coach to me, So actually, let's talk about that. Like, how do you deal with a coaching change? And then how do you deal with, believing that you can play, but that coach is kind of, hindering you from doing that?
Yeah. So it's even deeper than the receiver coach being changed too, because we had all but clean house on the coaching staff. We got a lot of turnover that year, including the offensive coordinator, who actually calls the plays and like who has to say on who should play and who the ball should be going, who should be getting targets and whatnot. So that played a huge part on top of, the receivers coach leaving, 2.5 years later. And the only way to deal with it is to, again, put your head down, go to work, be prepared, earn a playbook, make plays when your number is called. And it's up to them to see the work that you put in. And what I can say in Rhode Island, like that work for me was just overlooked.
I know that kind of played a part in your decision to transfer. So tell me a little bit about that process, why you chose where you chose, and just how that whole process went.
I knew at the beginning of that year of 2023, no matter what happens, this is my last year here. I can't do it. Right. So when we get into December, I'm like, I got to make something shake. And I remember my man, Darius, he was at Duquesne. So coincidentally, in fact, that I was the one that hosted him on his visit the year prior. And I had a good relationship with him. He sent the coach my film the same night. And that same night, he told me like, the coaches loved it. I was on the phone with the coach. He was like, we need your info. Let's get you on this flight. Let's get you over here for a visit so you can see what it's like over here. We can talk through things. And I just felt like the energy was just so genuine. I hadn't felt that energy in a long time. That was something that I was missing at Rhode Island for a while. So when it came back, it was just so blatantly obvious, like, yo, like they actually, not only do they want me, they need me, and they showing it. So that next day, 2 days later, actually, after the phone call, I was on a flight to Pittsburgh. And I got there and they took care of everything and they just showed me around. And like, just the energy when I got there was just totally different. I was watching film, going over the playbook. I'm like, yo, bro, I'll be here next week. And that's what happened.
We had texted, we had called each other a couple of times. You just had a different energy. You were confident. So did you kind of feel like a new person once that whole thing transpired and you were really there? Tell me about, a couple of those feelings you got.
So I wouldn't say I feel like a new person. I'd say the shroud that I had over me when I was in Rhode Island was finally lifted when I got over there. And then like the real me was back. Like this is what I was been waiting on all these years. And like my energy was just so up because it was just a fresh start. I had earned all the players' respect. I earned all the coaches' respect. They gave me respect off the jump. Like they made me feel like I was at home. And it was just like, yo, like we're gonna take care of you, bro. Just go to work. And when the time comes, just produce. And that's the environment that I had been waiting on for so long. Cause, in this game, like you gotta fight tooth and nail for everything. You know what I mean? Like every ounce of respect, every play that's called to your number, you gotta prove that you worth that flight and that tuition that they paying. And I feel like in Rhode Island, I had to prove that over and over and over and over again. But when I got to Duquesne, I only had to prove it a few times. Like, okay, like it was no more tests. It was no more games. Like they saw who I was and there was no questions after that. It was like, okay, now let's roll.
Yeah, so obviously, like I said, we talked a lot, especially during your last year. And I just knew that was kind of your breakout year. I knew what you were going to do, especially with Darius back there. And for the people who know Erb, Erb is known for his great catches, crazy catches. So tell me about those catches you made at Duquesne, because I know you had a couple of them, but tell me about that special one that, made that top 10, went viral.
In the first game at Toledo, I made 2 catches. One on the sideline, that was nuts. Darius made a crazy play too on that throw. That throw was crazy. The second one, that same drive, I had laid out across the middle with a defender draped over me. And I never tucked the ball. I caught it, and I kept it in my hands as I hit the ground and rolled over for a 4th down conversion. And like after that game, like the defense and the whole team had already like respected me during camp because they saw what was coming. But camp and game is different. And when they saw what I did in the game, it was like, oh yeah, bro, you really gotta respect now. They had already voted me captain. I made a lot of one-hand catches during practice throughout the year. And I was just thinking like, yo, it's my last year, bro. Like, I'm going to do this in the game, bro. I got to. It's going to happen. But it's going to be situations that you can't force it. So the play that it did happen, the play you're talking about, that ball wasn't actually supposed to come to me. It was designed for the tight end. But the tight end didn't realize what play it was. And I looked. I'm like, I realized he didn't know what was going on. I told Darius, hold on a second. I looked to the ref. I'm like, yo, I'm off. So I backed up so it could be legal. Then I ran the route. I broke Burr off in the end zone, and I'm open. Darius rolled out. He looking for the tight end. The tight end's not there. He's blocking. But he see me flash across his face, and I'm around 2 people, so he just threw it up. And then my instinct I just went up with one because it was the same process that I had practiced so many times. I had done it so many times in practice, and it came out in the game. It was in the end zone, and like it was a really big play, and we needed that too. The whole crowd just went crazy. The sideline went crazy. I ended up getting a penalty because I took my helmet off. I thought I was out of bounds in my defense. I thought I was out of bounds already, but I wasn't. But I was too turned. I'll never forget that moment, and it made it even more special because I had a lot of family there that game. People that came from South Carolina, people that came from Philadelphia, all around the South too, North Carolina, Virginia, and my brother who lived in Texas. That was the first time he actually saw me playing college all these years. He was at that game, and I was able to do that. So that was I'll never forget that day. That was a really good day. It was a great day. Core memory for sure.
Now, your college career is over. What happens next?
So, the goal as a kid was to go pro. We did a pro day out in Pittsburgh. It wasn't ideal at all. The environment was uncontrolled. Normally your pro day is in a controlled environment. Inside, lasers, lots of equipment, all that. But at a reasonable hour too. We was in Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania, mid-March. If you know anything about that area, during March, it is cold. It is very cold. And I was in Rhode Island for 6 years. It might be worse than Rhode Island. I'm not gonna lie. It might be worse. But we was up at 6 a.m. In the weight room first, and we were outside by about 6:45. I remember for sure the temp was 28 degrees outside. The wind chill was in the single digits. And it's supposed to be our pro day. We supposed to be at our optimal performance level. We supposed to be running fast times, trying to cut on a hard field. The field is it's like concrete. Your cleats touch cold turf. You can't dig in. It's hard and it hurts. But we did what we could with it. And I feel like, we weren't put in the best position. Already in a small school, they're going to look at you a certain way, and then you don't do that too. I just kept working, tried out for the CFL. That was another situation that I thought was, should have been a little better than what it was, but things happen. My experience was crazy, really. Even before the pro day, the All-Star game that I went to was a sham. Just running into a lot of roadblocks, but I'm used to it, I'm just keeping my focus on what I can control. And I just had the UFL tryout in Texas last month. And that was the best I have felt for sure because the energy was different. You could see the methods of control and evaluation there. So it felt official. And, I just went out there and again, did what I could with what I had because at this point I had been training on my own for the last 6 months. And now I'm currently signed to the Las Vegas Nighthawks of the IFL, the Indoor Football League. Me and Darius assigned to that team.
Let's go back a little bit to like draft time, right? So you're sitting there, you don't know what's really going to happen. You're waiting on a call. Tell me about your thoughts during that process, and then ultimately after the draft when you were kind of waiting and didn't really get any calls. Tell me about how that felt mentally and whether you kind of stuck with training hard, and just tell me about that process.
The process itself was, I had to take into consideration the things that I had been through, the things that weren't in my control. Like I said, the All-Star game that I went to, that's like a pivotal moment for people that's, coming out of college. It's your last chance to like get around, professional scouts, and be, just so that you could perform around competition. And that, again, that wasn't what it was advertised to be. So that didn't help at all. On top of being from a small school, on top of my pro day being how it was, I knew what the dude was. I knew at that point that I wasn't going to be on the board. You know what I'm saying? So the best case scenario that I could ask for was a mini camp invite or, being an undrafted free agent. And I was really hopeful that, Pittsburgh, would look right in their backyard. You know what I'm saying? It's just a mini camp invite. You there for 3 days. A lot of people don't make it from there. You know what I mean? I thought like, at the very least, I can get a shot to, regardless of the numbers that I put up during the pro game, regardless of what I weigh, my height, whatever, if you get me on that field, I'm going to show you what I do. But that never happened there. So, I just kept training because, I have an agent. I stayed in contact with him. And I was like, all right, well, let me know what's next because I know it's not over still. So that's how it's been since I got hurt. Like, all right, what's next? How we going to keep it real?
And keep it real is the most important thing. Fun fact, I spoke with your mom. And one of the things as parents, when we watch you go through these experiences, we are in it with you all the way. And when, like you said, you have a childhood dream that you're carrying forward into adulthood, which at some point is going to be reconciled. And so when I was speaking with your mother, I basically said, stay with him until he's done. And that's something that Ed and I walked through. We were down here in Florida. He was training. And I never wanted him to think that we weren't in his corner. Even though the odds get smaller and smaller the longer you are out of school. So I want to ask you something because we are reaching the close of this podcast. When you hear resilient by design, what does that mean to you personally?
Personally, just from my story, staying true to who you are and staying true to your goals no matter what happens. You have your eyes set on something and, you might have a preconceived path of how to get there, but what we learn when we go through life is that path is fluid, it's abstract, it's always moving. It ain't what you see on TV, The people we see on TV that's going crazy at the highest level and is drafted in the first round and then they win the Super Bowl and then all that in the third. Those are unicorns, man. That ain't most of us. And even on another level of that, even a small percentage of people that play this game even make it to that level. But just being resilient is just, staying true to your goals, staying disciplined, regardless of what happened. Holding yourself to your own standard. And the standard never dropped. No matter what's going on, there's no excuses. And that's one of the things that football taught me. Like, everybody goes through some. everybody has setbacks. And one of the things that my dad always told me, like, it ain't about what happened to you in life. It's about how you respond. Just keep responding in the right way. Keep responding in a way that's gonna get you towards your goals and that's gonna build you as a person. And keep responding in a way that you can look back on and be proud of, regardless of what happened.
Now, Herb, I feel like part of our responsibility as older athletes is passing our knowledge down to younger athletes, right? And so what's something that you could give to younger athletes who are dealing with injuries or dealing with, not being on the field at the moment? What's just some advice that you could give them?
I'll tell them this, man. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you and tell you that it's all gonna be all right, because it might not be, man. That's up to you. It's up to you how far you take this thing. How far you willing to go, how much work you willing to put in to get back, to get on that field, and most importantly, to prove yourself right. I think a lot of times, just because the nature of the business, that us players, we gotta try to prove ourselves and prove our worth to somebody, and that could be a demeaning experience. That could be something that's like you don't really want to be a part of, because that could get dark real fast, especially when them people don't see you for who you are. They don't really see your value truly, or they don't know how to implement you into the system that's there, or there just is no want to, because they have their sights set on someone else. So I'll tell guys, again, falling back on resilient by design, control what you control. That's all you can do. It's like in football, we have sudden change. You got to be ready for anything. You could be at the bottom, and all of a sudden, one thing changed, and now it's on you. And it's the worst thing you can do is to be unprepared in that moment. If you are unprepared, now you just proved all the things that was against you. People got a reason to say, see, I knew he wasn't going to do that. See, I knew I was right by not playing him, by not giving him the opportunity. So when you already made the most of it and put it on tape, so you have proof of what you can do. Take advantage of every opportunity you have, because you never know what could happen the next day or the next play, the next practice. You don't know. I had no idea that my career would go the way that it did, but, I had no say in the matter. I had to dominate the things that I could, and that was the rehab. That was fighting through the dark places, the depression, the urges to want to lash out and all that. You know what I mean? I had to fight through all of that, stay close to my team, stay close to the divine energy within, and, tap into my parents, use your resources, because you don't get anywhere alone, man. It's, we talking about me, but it's so many people I could name throughout every year of this story that played such a pivotal role into where I am now, and how I overcame all these obstacles. Was it my determination and grit? Yeah. Was it my resilience? Yeah. But you got to have a support system to hold you up when you was down, and I had a great support system from you, Miss Susan, from Ed, from all our teammates, from even some of the coaches that was at Rhode Island. You know what I'm saying? Custo played a big part, and he's just such a good person. People that I could lean on in times of need. Even Coach Leach, you know what I'm saying? Strength coach, I spent a lot of time with him. And I always bring up the therapist again, Mark Murphy. And it's funny, at the lowest point, I also met my girlfriend at the same time. And she was such a pivotal part of everything. You know what I'm saying? When I met her, everything changed. So just stay close to who values you, and just keep going, man. You only get one shot at this thing, so you gonna have to make it work no matter what happens, dog. That's what I have for the young guys.
Well, John, Thank you so much. Ed, thank you for joining me on this. Don't think you're off the hook because I'm going to bring you on another podcast. But John, I just want to say it again, every athlete knows that the game doesn't end when the final whistle blows. It ends when you stop showing up for yourself. What you did not do was stop showing up for yourself. So thank you for reminding us what showing up really looks like. Until next time, keep working, keep believing, and stay resilient by design.
Chasing purpose, redefine time. Vision clear, the future near. Trust in God.